Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. So today I'm going to be going through my top 5 Successor Space Marine chapters. Now, to put the bias out of the window, I'm not going to be naming any Successor chapters that come from the gene line of Rogal Dorn, because if I did include them, it'd just simply be Black Templars, Hammers of Dawn, Subjugators, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to be doing that. These are purely non-Dornian Successor chapters which I favour the most. So let's jump in and let's get started. So starting at number 5 is the Scythes of the Emperor. I absolutely love this chapter. First thing, the colour scheme, the yellow and the black, just echoes awesomeness. I like it how it's all mismatched and stuff like that. Their lore about them has a lot of awesomeness in it, but also a lot of sadness in it as well. We'll get to that in a little second. The gene seed, of course, comes from the Ultramarines, and that means that their gene father is, of course, none other than Rabuti Gilliman. Now, when it comes to their lore and their so-called downfall, but also their rising from the ashes, it all centers around their planet. Their homeworld is a place called Sofa. But back during the Horus Heresy, there was something found on Sofa called the Pharos, which is more or less a teleport beacon which runs on emotion, if I'm not mistaken, and it can teleport anything anywhere in the galaxy. Now, during the Horus Heresy, they did something that more or less exploded this, and it sent like a kind of a psychic shockwave out. And what happened with this shockwave is that it turned the head of the Tyranid forces towards our galaxy because of this ignition of psychic backlash or whatever kind of power it was. In the dark, it lit up our galaxy, and the full beasts of the Tyranid, the Xenos threat, then started to move to our galaxy. It took 10,000 years for them to get here, but when they got here, we all know what happened then. Sofa was completely overrun by Tyranids, but not just by Tyranids first. For those of you who know what really happens, Genestealer cultists had infiltrated their chapter servers and brought the chapter down from inside, which is very, very unheard of before, and it's very, very, very sad because the Scythes of the Emperor were all for protecting the civilians, who were all about protecting the population on Sofa, and so to be betrayed by that very population that you are protecting, that you give so much for, is a kind of a sad end for the Scythes of the Emperor. But of course, all was not lost. Now, this is going to have a little spoilery tag at the top because I don't want to ruin the Belisarius Call book. So if you don't want to listen this bit, then just ignore it. Now, Belisarius Call went to Sofa to study the Pharos. So this is the latest lore on this, and he took with him the firstborn remaining members of the Scythes of the Emperor. For those of you who don't know what the firstborn is, it's basically non-Primaris. It's the normal Space Marines. Now, a small little group went to Sofa to reclaim and destroy any Genestealer threat that still remained on the planet. So the Chapter Master was there, Chapter Master Pharos was there, and with a little squad of his own little firstborn retinue guard. Now, they went down, they found the Genestealer Patriarch in there. All the firstborn died along with Chapter Master Pharos, but in his death, he did manage to kill the Genestealer Patriarch, which caused all the misery, all the death, and more or less destroyed and wiped out the Scythes of the Emperor. But because Belisarius Call had come back, the Primaris had started to come back into the Scythes of the Emperor, so they were reborn with the new initiate of the Primaris Marine. But the firstborn, more or less in the chapter, were all wiped out. So the Scythes of the Emperor now, I would say, are like 95% fully Primaris. One other thing in this as well is that Belisarius Call began to rebuild the planet of Sofa, not just on the planet, because for those of you who know what happens when Genestealers come, they numb everything and it's just a barren rock. He started to like agri-world it, like bring all these big machines, he said, and he can pump life back into the planet. That's probably going to take hundreds and hundreds of years. So while that is being done, he rebuilt the abandoned orbital station around Sofa, and that is basically the fortress monastery for the Scythes of the Emperor until the planet is going to be fully revived and brought back from the ashes. So there we have it. That is number 5, Scythes of the Emperor. They lived through a lot, they did a lot, they nearly got wiped out, but in my opinion, they came back bigger, better, stronger, and they are out for vengeance against anything that has more than 2 legs. Damn bloody Tyrannid Xenos. Purge them all, brothers. Now, moving on to number 4 on the list, it is the Exorcist chapter. Now, I absolutely love this chapter. 1, for being a successor of the Grey Knights. I'm a huge fan of the Grey Knights. I wish I could include the Grey Knights on this list, but it's not. This is Successors, so I'm going with the successor of the Grey Knights, the Exorcist. They were founded during the 13th Founding, which a lot of people say is the Cursed Founding. Well, it actually is known as the Cursed Founding. But one thing that separates the Exorcist from every other chapter I can think of is that an initiate goes through a certain process that no other initiate does, and that is that they have a demon put inside of them, and they then have to get that demon exorcised out of them, and if they are healthy, if they are okay after that process, then they move on to the next stage. But as you could probably guess, that a lot of people don't make it when you have a demon put inside of you and you get it exorcised out of you. There's a lot of physical trauma involved. There's a lot of mental trauma involved as well. Just imagine having a demon put inside you for a certain amount of time. That is going to cause some type of damage. Now, these chaps work very, very closely with the Inquisition, of course, being a successor chapter of the Grey Knights, and of course, being bred, well, I would say bred, but being bored with demons. It requires the Inquisition and the demon hunters and all that kind of stuff to assist in that. They have very, very close bonds with the Inquisition. A lot of people, well, I say a lot of people, a lot of Space Marine chapters don't really trust the Inquisition. There's only a certain small force of chapters that are very, very buddy-buddy with the Inquisition. I can probably name about 5 just on my hand. I won't go into it this video. Maybe that's another video for another time. But these are one of the top ones that work with the Inquisition. But don't hold that against them, because these chaps actually do get involved and they get stuff done. The Exorcist chapter fought in 2 big campaigns. The Badab War, which we'll go more to into this video with another chapter, and more to the end of the video. Wonder if that's going to give you some hints of what's coming. The Badab War was a big, big war. It had some chapters in there, which, well, one of them is one of my best chapters, Successor Chapters, but it's a Dawning chapter, so I can't go really into that in this video. The Exorcist also fought in the Third War of Armageddon, and they also fought in the 13th Black Crusade as well. So they fought in big campaigns. They've got their fingers dirty, and they've purged the enemies of the Imperium. I'm moving on to number 3, and this is a chapter which is different from everyone on the list, because this is an Ultima Founding chapter, and what that means is that these chaps are recently made. They were made with the return of Rebuta Guilliman and the Primaris Initiate all be coming out and being known into the galaxy. Rebuta made another founding called the Ultima Founding, and the Silver Templars were one of those chapters which were made purely of the Primaris gene stock. Now, the Silver Templars, I was a bit annoyed when these chaps first came out, because like, the Silver Templars? Where the hell are the Black Templars? Surely this should have been like the Black Templars getting all this kind of love. But the more I read about the Silver Templars, the more I came to love them. They actually have a dedicated codex book which you can actually buy. I think it's very, very rare to get now, like on eBay and stuff like that, but you can find it. It came with this like Hatchet magazine kind of subscription stuff, which not a lot of people went, well, a lot of people went for, but not a lot of people actually went for the book because it was kind of pricey. But it is out there for you to read, but if not, you can just go online and, you know, just get some of the information from different sources, different wiki pages and all that kind of stuff. So the Silver Templars are successors of the Ultramarines. So again, just like number 5, the Scythes of the Emperor, they come from the gene stock of Rebuta Guilliman. I'm very, very concerned with the amount of Ultramarine gene seed I have on this list. Yes, I'm sure I'm going to get a ribbing from certain friends on the online community about this. So their whole world is Novarius. Their fortress monastery is Colossus, and of course they serve the Imperium of Man. Their colour scheme, you've probably seen it in the background now, is that they're silver, and they have like these black trim and yellow shoulder pads, and their chapter symbol is a sword with 2 lightning bolts pointing downwards. Very, very cool. One of the things that really, really stuck out to me and really made me like these chaps the most is some of their lore, which we'll get into in a second, but the way they fight. They're a very melee-orientated chapter, and I love melee-orientated chapter. Executioners, Black Templars, some more of these chapters on the list, which are going to be after these. I love the whole melee aspect of Warhammer 40k. So if there's a chapter that gets that on board and uses that more than anything else and is good at that, that's what really attracts me to that chapter. And there's lore behind how badass they are when they come to use their melee stuff, because the way they take enemies down is that they go for the leaders, and to go for the leaders they carve a path through the army just to get to the leader, just to initiate a duel of some sort and just bring that leader down, because they think if you cut the head off the beast, the body will die. Mostly that is the case, especially with this example from the Orcs, which is called the Assault on Nectis. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. It was basically a massive Orc war. A war boss emerged from a battle wagon to assault the city walls. The chief librarian and the captain of the second company saw this. The captain of the second company is called Leo Tatius, probably a Leonatus kind of vibe from that. And they basically cut their way through the Orc ranks. You know, the Psycho was using his psychic power to not only empower him, but to empower the captain as well, cleaving their way through, ripping things apart, and they got to the Orc war boss and they killed him, and the Orc war then just kind of turned on itself as they, tried to get a new leader, as Orcs normally do. They had no one to command them, and it all fell apart. But of course, that comes at a cost. Like, the quarter of the forces of the Silver Templars were lost during that assault to try and get to that war boss. So it's not all, fun in the sun. There is consequences to their actions. Moving on to number 2. And this chapter is very, very special to me because they had a bit of beef with my most loved successor chapter, the Executioners. And that is, of course, the Carcharodons, aka the Space Sharks. Now, these chaps are just completely badass, insane, chain axes ripping you apart. They are absolutely awesome. Now, there is some debate what gene line these belong to. Some people say they belong to the Raven Guard. Some people say they belong to the Night Lord gene seed as well. So, yeah, it's unconfirmed at the moment on who they belong to, but I think we can all agree that these chaps are someone that you don't want to meet down a dark alleyway at night. Now, they're probably most famous for the Badab War. Now, the Badab War was a civil war in the Imperium where it actually involved loyalist space marines taking different sides of certain factions and stuff like that. Now, on one side, you had, let's just say, the Carcharodons, and on the other side, you have other chapters. One of the chapters which I'm going to mention in this video is the Executioners. The Executioners are very dear to me because they belong to the gene seed of Rogal Dorn, and they picked the wrong side. And what I mean by the wrong side, that they picked the side of the Astral Claws, who were basically leading this insurrection against the Imperium. Now, the Space Sharks turned up, or the Carcharodons, however you want to say it. I like to call them Space Sharks. I think it's cooler when you call them Space Sharks. So the Space Sharks turned up, and they just absolutely began rampaging. Of course, there were other chapters involved who were helping them out and stuff like that. There's a whole book dedicated to this. I'm briefly just going over it. And they came and they absolutely annihilated everyone. They actually got, them and the Executioners actually fought off on a space station, if I'm not mistaken. And because the Executioners are very brutal as well in their kind of warfare, in melee aspects, as well as the Carcharodons, aka the Space Sharks, then when a force went there to see what happened when the two forces met, all they found was just dead bodies of Executioners and Space Sharks. They were just like brutalizing, butchering each other, because it was just like an immovable object meets an immovable force. It was just absolute bloodshed, death everywhere, and I just fell in love with them, because anyone who can go toe to toe with my Executioners definitely deserve all the love and all the praise they can get. And moving on to the final one. Number 1, if you haven't guessed it by now, then what the hell are you up to? Of course, It's the Flesh Tearers. Gabriel Seth, Sons of Sanguinius, Rage, Blood, Death. Oh my holy emperor. Stay out the way of these folks, because they will rip you apart just by looking at him. Just give it the wrong look, and that's it. You are dead, sir. Now, with all Sons of Sanguinius, they do have a flaw in their gene seed. First thing, they have the red first, and secondly, they have the Black Rage, and printed by Sanguinius is death. But with the Black Rage and the Flesh Tearers, this gradually gets worse as their gene seed mutation gradually worsens. So they experience the Black Rage more and more. They are fueled by the rage. This is what makes them such a fantastic, such a brutal, such a fan favourite successor chapter. There's so much rage, brutality, death, bloodshed, echoing the death of Sanguinius in his last presence and just throttling the life out of the enemies of mankind. They are absolutely brutal and just glorious in everything they do. Now, one of the most well-known characters from the Flesh Tearers is probably Gabriel Seth. And he is a character, let me just say this right from now, that much of a character that he got put on trial by all the other successor chapters, and of course the Blood Angels, and the Trials of Gabriel Seth, a great book on Black Library if you want to go and check it out, because he's just such a warlord. Well, I won't say a warlord, he's just so brutal in his way of countering the enemies and dealing with certain people. There's a story which an Inquisitor basically set Gabriel Seth up to die. So what Gabriel Seth did to get revenge on the Inquisitor was secretly hiding on like a ship filled with civilians, and I think it was a medical ship. Yeah, it was a medical ship filled with like dying and civilians that needed just all the help they can get, and they were trying to find somewhere, and the Inquisitor hid herself among them. He sent a full company of Death Company aboard it just to completely wipe them out. And that was it. No witnesses, no nothing, just to get his revenge. That's how much of a brutal, cunning guy he is. He will seek vengeance no matter what. Now, there has been a little bit of back and forth with Gabriel Seth since the return of Rabute Gilliman, which I always find hilarious, is that he doesn't trust Rabute. He's always said that the Primaris Project, Rabute, they're just basically trying to make us red Ultramarines, which kind of sums up a lot of people's fandom when it comes to the Primaris. But over the past couple of weeks, we've actually learned that the Primaris are not immune to the Black Rage. So Gabriel Seth is probably going to open his arms to him. He disliked the Primaris, but knowing that they can go down the same bloodlust and rage and adopt their same kind of brutality because they are not immune, then I'm sure they'll just fit right in, and he'll be a happy chapter with everything that they can actually do and give towards the chapter. Alright, Chaperonios, that is me done for another video. This was only going to be like a 10-minute video, and it turned into like 15 minutes plus. I'm sorry about that. I don't like to do it, more than 10 minutes or anything like that. I like to keep it nice, small, and condensed, but there's just so much to go through, so much to talk about, and there's just so much awesome successor chapters. I wish I could include more, but I just want to do top 5, maybe top 10, maybe another time doing something else. But those are my top 5 successor chapters. I would love to know your top 5 successor chapters, so please leave it below in the comment section down below. Let's try and do it like I did it. I know we all have our favourite gene sire, so of course mine is Rogal Dorn, and I'm sure you'll have a favourite gene one like, Vulcan or something like that. Let's try and name non-favourite gene sire successor chapters, so it adds a little bit more to the list, and it's a little bit more funner then, because you have to really think, okay, who do I actually like outside of like Black Templars and actually stuff like that. So let me know down in the comment section, let me know your thoughts, feedback, everything like that. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you all very, very soon. Have a great day. See you now, and bye bye.